Well, welcome once again, everybody. I would figure some of y'all be getting sick of me by now. Once a week's getting to be a lot, although I figured if I talked about deer, plenty of people would show up for that. It seems to be something that is an issue anywhere you go. It's an issue certainly around here. It's only going to get worse as we build more and more. The deer have to go somewhere to eat, and that's usually winds up being into our gardens. And I live with deer. I have kind of a right of way behind my house, so it's wooded on two sides of my house at the end of a cul-de-sac, and the deer kind of travel along that right of way like it's a highway. So I do have those issues. So, I tend to just garden as I normally would. I plant things I like, and, sometimes the deer get to them, but I just try and plant a lot so I don't have to deal with that too much. Anyway, I hardly even know if the deer get to something. Got a couple little things before we get started. I want to mention again our summer camps. If you have kids at home or neighbors who have kids or grandkids, they don't, it's some pretty neat virtual summer camps. We don't have people on site. The university did away with all of our summer camps, everything associated with the university for summer camps this year. But our team has put together some really fantastic programs. The week prior to the camps, you'll come by and pick up a bucket or box of everything you'll need to kind of participate in the camps at home. And so there'll be a welcome video in the morning and some activities that kids can do on their own, and then everybody will meet up at lunch and be able to share what they've done during the day. And it's really pretty darn interesting what they've got going on. So I do want to mention that those have just gone live for the general public. We expect them to fill up pretty quickly. So if you know anybody who's interested, I'd let them know right away that they can join that. All right, let's get into it. Y'all came to hear me talking about deer, that perennial problem. Doesn't matter where you go. In fact, I remember two of the speakers for the symposium, Kelly and Sue, when I was out visiting them, we drove into Port Townsend, Washington for lunch. And as we were going out there, you could look out, and in people's backyards, deer were just curled up sleeping in their yards. I mean, they were everywhere. And same thing with us. My wife sends me pictures of the cute deer in our yard. There'll be a herd of 6 or 8 of them in our yard, and she likes to send me pictures of those. Not my favorite things. And deer are tough. And so I'm going to start off right here by saying, if you looked at the title online, it was deer resistant-ish plants. Deer do not read the books, don't listen to lectures. They don't always agree with what we say they don't eat or don't eat much. So everything I'm going to talk about are plants that deer don't eat first, and probably not even second, but they'll eat anything. As far as I can tell, they're like woodland goats. They'll eat anything. So keep that in mind. If you do have feedback about things I talk about that the deer regularly eat in your yard, I'd love you to put that in the chat, because that is interesting for me to hear as well. All right, we're going to jump right in. This is the issue with deer. And you're only this lucky to get a plant like this if you put a cage around this emerald arborvitae to get it tall enough so it gets above where the deer can reach. You know, I have plants that disappear. I thought I was going crazy. I was sure I'd planted some things and they were gone. I finally realized that deer had gone to eat them and had, you know, right after I'd planted them, and they, you know, lifted the whole thing out of the ground because it hadn't rooted in yet. So, you know, we all know about it. It's an issue. So I'm going to talk about some groups of plants, and then also some individual things that are pretty deer resistant. And the first group is ferns. And I'm not going to go through and talk about a lot of ferns, but deer stay away from ferns. It's just one of those things that they don't go after very much. This is a painted fern here in the center. It's actually, I meant to change that name on there. It's Ethereum Godzilla, which is actually a hybrid between a painted fern, Ethereum nipponicum or Goringii, and Ethereum, most likely a lady fern. It arose at Plant Delight's nursery. And if you like painted ferns, but you want them to get bigger, Godzilla is the one to go, because it gets to be a big honking plant. It's actually planted there with kind of a small, medium-sized hosta that you can't even see anymore, and it's starting to devour the Cucurella there as well. So I may have to do some moving of plants around that thing. But ferns are always great. And there's a lot of different textures and colors. You know, there's the silvers and reds you get in painted ferns. There's, you know, green is a color, and you can get, you know, really dark glossy green with things like holly ferns, and you can get pale, and, you know, and Christmas ferns, and you can get paler greens like maidenhairs and different textures. I like the tongue ferns like Pyrosia lingua. This is a kind of a chartreusey one. Ogon just means gold in Japan. But deer just don't touch these things at all. So, you know, that's, if you've got a shade garden and you've got deer, you know, ferns can be really one of your best friends. You know, planting them liberally throughout will help keep the deer, hopefully, from nibbling on too many of your other things. Another group of plants that deer stay away from for the most part are the sedges, carex, and true grasses. So I didn't put a lot of the true grasses in here, but any of them, whether, you know, it's the pink muley grass or panic grass or switch grasses or maiden grasses, any of those ornamental grasses, deer just tend to leave alone. The carexes are nice. They're great ones for sun. There are a lot of them for shade. There's a lot of variegated ones like this island brocade. This is kind of a low, wide leafed carex that spreads to form mats. There are clumping ones like the Carex oceamensis. This is gold stripe, a really heavily variegated one. There's a lot out there. There's a whole new series like Everest, Everillo, bunch like that are really good. They have golds and whites and even greens that are great for shade garden. You know, you can even get, you know, dead sedges. These are a lot of the sedges from New Zealand, like Carex Comans bronze, Carex buchanani. These look like I think they're cool, but you got to be a better designer than me, I think, to have them work well in your garden. And I found them sometimes to be a little bit tricky, but Carex Comans is generally pretty easy for us. Carex buchanani is a little bit tougher, but it's pretty cool. That coppery, bronzy colored foliage there, you know, that's year-round interest. Another one that is just starting to become known. I first saw it on the West Coast at the University of California, Berkeley Botanic Garden, Carex sciposa. And this is one, you know, usually you're growing just for the foliage, but this thing has beautiful flowers and fruit heads, these nice pink flowers. It'll often flower in spring and again in fall. Carrots are generally mostly active growing in cooler seasons. So I like to get them, if they're looking ratty, I like to get them cut back, midwinter so they can flush out in early spring. Before, if you wait too long, if you cut them back, they don't really pop back out as well. But that's really nice now that you've got a flowering sedge like that. They're just neat plants, and you can find a carex for any site. You can get them for dry, shady spots. You can get them for sunny spots. You can get them for use in rain gardens. You can get ones that'll like to be in permanently damp soils. So they're really super highly functional plants, and deer don't seem to like them much at all. Now, the next group are aromatic herbs. These are plants that we use either for cooking or for, sometimes in the perfume industry, that have a lot of oils these aromatic oils in their leaves and stems and things like that. So rosemary is a great plant. You plant it somewhere where it drains well. It flowers in the middle of winter, most of them. This is a prostrate one called Renzel's or Irene. But, it's evergreen. It's great. I love rosemary. If I finally have a sunny enough garden to grow it, and I haven't actually planted any yet, but I need to. And you can get rosemary and a lot of these herbs for really cheap. So in our climate, they tend to grow pretty fast and they can get kind of leggy and start breaking apart. What you want to do is prune them regularly to keep them denser. You can't let it get big and leggy and then cut it back really hard. You've got to keep doing that on a regular basis. But also just be prepared to, at a certain point, when doesn't look good anymore, rip it out and plant another one. You can probably go get them for, a few bucks at most any garden center. This little cute one that we picked up locally, I still don't know much about it. It's just called Baby PJ, and it's got real short little needles. It's a greener one. Some of the rosemaries have more of this gray cast to them. Some of them are, greener. You can, separate that, look for them that way. This one's just a little bit smaller flowers, smaller leaves, a little denser habit. We think it's a pretty cute little plant. But, somehow a lot of these plants get relegated to herb gardens. And I don't know why we have to segregate our plants like that. We were talking about Bree's foodscaping class before this. Part of what she does is, integrates her food into the landscape. And we can do that with herbs as well. We can have them be part of the regular landscape. But they want a lot of sun and well-drained soil. Another one is lavender. Lavenders don't tend to do very well for us. This lavender phenomenal is one of the best that I've grown. It's from Peachtree Farms up in New Jersey, and it's really highly touted to be as a really uniform grower. Now I've got one at my house that is in very rich soils, and it is happy and it is growing and it's getting ready to flower right now, but it's a little too happy. It grows and kind of splits apart. So I told my wife that after it finishes flowering, I'm going to rip it out. And haven't decided if I'm going to replace it or not. I really need a leaner soil than what I have. But if I were growing one true lavender, like what people really think of when they talk about lavender, this phenomenal would be it. Now there are the Spanish lavender, Lavandula sticus. You can always tell this lavender because it looks like a little rabbit or something, a little bunny on top. The way the flowers are, these bracts just stick out at the top. Some of those grow well for us, some of them do not. Chelsea Flower Show, there was an amazing display of these Spanish lavenders, and they had, ones with this bottom part would be purple and the top would be white or pink, or, they were just all these different variations, and they were gorgeous. Most of them probably will not grow very well for us. This one was one that was in our annual plant trials, Javelin Forte Deep Purple. And we were blown away. It flowered and flowered and flowered and flowered. It just did not stop. It went through the winter, no problem. That was a pretty mild winter that we've had, mild winters the last 2 years. So it hadn't gone through a really cold winter. We'll wait to see what it does with that. But yeah, this was pretty darn nice. We've been really impressed with that. There were some others in this Javelin Forte series, like light purple and things that didn't do nearly as well as the dark purple did. So we're for right now, we're pretty high on this one. Hopefully it'll be available more widely soon. There's some that we don't use really as culinary but are still kind of in the same families, mint families, and where they have these essential oils like Russian sage, Perovskia. You want to talk about a tough plant. This plant, put it where it is hot and it is dry, where there's just never any water. Once you get it established, it'll just be gorgeous for a long period over the summer. And deer just they want nothing to do with it. Cut it back to the ground late winter, and it'll do this every year. They're beautiful in masks. If you see this, 3 of these is gorgeous. You see somebody who plants 20 or 30 of them, and it's breathtaking over the summer. And a lot of these plants, including this, are great pollinator plants. You see insects all over them pretty regularly. Nepeta, another one, the catmints. These fall kind of in that same category. Usually they're more lavender than this. This is Nepeta subsessilis, Sweet Dream. So this is a pink form, and Nepeta subsessilis is kind of a larger flowered one. Most of what you see, most of the catmints you see, the Nepetas you see will have lavender flowers, kind of smaller flowers, but they flower over a long period. And after they finish flowering really heavily, if you come in and give them a little shave, take off all those flowers, they'll usually flush out and throw out some new flowers on there as well. There's a lot of great ones out there. Walker's Low, what is it? There's Cat's Pajamas, Cat's Meow. I can't remember. There's just a ton of them. And pretty much all of them I like. I grow a lot of Nepetas over the years, and I almost always like them. Joanna Reed is another really good one. Although I did have an infestation of whiteflies at my house just on a Nepeta, and I'm not sure why that was. I haven't really had a problem with that before. But if that happens, what you can do is just cut it down really short, get rid of that foliage on the top, give it a spray if you're inclined to do that. I'm generally not. And that'll reduce the population. It won't get rid of them, but it'll really reduce it, and you don't have to worry much after that. Peonies. People always complaining that there's nothing I can grow. Man, if you can grow peonies, you can grow some great stuff. I didn't go through and put in a bunch of peonies. I started to. I had pictures of 80 peonies that I was going to do, but no real reason to do that. Everything from the herbaceous peonies like this Trafford Bigger, to the tree peonies. Shimanishki is a tree peony, to the hybrids between them. All, deer stay pretty well away from. We have a lot of peonies here at the Arboretum. I'm going to forget, Southeastern Peony Society, I think. I don't think it's Triangle. I think it's Southeastern Peony Society. Helped us get a really significant collection here, and they've been in the ground now for a fair number of years and have really filled in and are really looking good. And, you know, this gives us a chance to really look at them critically and see which ones are the ones that hold up the best, that look good the longest. You know, it killed me this year because this was a great peony year. When they were all flowering, it was nice and cool most of that time. They lasted a long, long time. Not many of us got to enjoy that. But peonies are great plants, and they are super long-lived, and they can go into some shade. They tend not to flower quite as much when you start getting them into more shade, but you can get them over there. You know, for all the amazing ones out there, the ones that I really like still are the species ones. This is one that we grow here at the Arboretum. It's just a kind of your bog standard herbaceous peony, Peony electiflora, but I think it is a pretty spectacular plant every year when it flowers in late April. And, you know, if deer leave it alone, that's good enough for me. Another group are iris, specifically bearded iris. Other irises are a little more mixed in how they do with deer, but the bearded irises tend to be really good. I've had some issues with some of the species iris with deer at my house. Tridentata, they munched on a little bit, and Crocea they've eaten a little bit, but never had them eat bearded iris. And if there is a color out there, they've got a bearded iris in that color, probably at whatever height you want. You know, dwarf ones, and they have tall ones, and they have mid-sized ones. What I really look for when I'm getting bearded irises, I look for the remontant types, the reblooming types. A good rebloomer will keep going and going and going in your garden. We have one called Again and Again here. Unfortunately, it isn't the showiest of flowers, but man, it flowers nonstop. So real estate in the garden to me is precious territory. So if I can get one that's going to rebloom, I'm going to do that. Now, some things you can't. So, you know, can't get a reblooming peony, but so I'll make do with those that only flower the once. But with a bearded iris, I'm definitely going to find one that's a rebloomer and not waste the time with ones that only bloom once. Another great group are the Baptisias. You know, these are our native southeastern herbaceous perennials. And it used to be that you could get lavender blue, white, and yellow. That's what was native. That's what was out there. But the breeding that's come along and really transformed these, you know, you get these reddish, brownish colors, which I got to be honest, the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, that's cool. And then I saw it out in the garden and it kind of just disappeared. So maybe not. But the bright gold of ones like Screaming Yellow, and perhaps my absolute favorite right now, Lemon Meringues, this soft primrose yellow, blooms so heavily. It's great. The biggest problem with Baptisia is they don't look good in a pot. So when you go to buy one, you know, and you're asking $20 for this, you know, quart-gallon pot or something, and it's got one or two stems in there, you're like, are you kidding me? That seems like a lot, and this isn't very pretty. Baptisia are the easiest plants to grow. You put them in the ground, they get bigger and better every year. And once it's going, there's nothing happening to your plant. It is going to be there for the long haul. So it's definitely worth the money, but you won't get them as impulse buy at the garden center because they just don't look like much. But I probably have, I don't know how many in my home garden. And here we've got probably dozens of them. Not and different species. There's a lot of different species, and they're very cool. We got a bunch of seed from Tony Avent from his trials, and we just sowed them out kind of just to see what we might find out behind the arboretum. And I mean, you can see there's some of these reddish ones in here. There, a lot of the gold ones, whites, pinks, lavenders, blues, just all through there, all these different, really showy colors. And we went through, we flagged them, some that we thought were interesting. But in the end, there really wasn't much that was superior to what was already out there. And there's just no sense introducing plants if they're not superior to what's out there or really, honestly different. Another group, the Farfugium japonicum, sometimes called Japanese Ligularia tusselago or something like that. I don't know. The one you normally see is this leopard plant. Aurea maculata has the yellow leaves dotted all through it. Some people think that looks diseased. I think it looks nice. You can get solid green ones as well. They're very showy in flower and are usually flowering late in the season, going into fall. And then over winter, if you just leave those heads there, they become these white powder puffs that stick up above the plants that I think are really attractive in a winter sort of way. I wouldn't plant them just for that, but when you get that foliage, that evergreen foliage that deer don't mess with, I like that. Now they're fairly drought tolerant, but they will look terrible during a drought. They, even right now, even with the moisture that's in the soil, when it's hot and bright and sunny, they just droop and kind of flag and look sad. They'll be back up in the morning, but they can look pretty sad. But even if I've had them go through pretty heavy drought and where they just look terrible, and I cut all the leaves off and it refleshed out and was fine. They're tough plants once they're established. And there are a bunch of forms of them. This is one kincan that I really like that just has the thinnest white edge around each leaf. And when you kind of get them overlapping like this, to me, it's a really neat effect. Subtle, but neat effect. I'm not often accused of being subtle in the garden because I like, stuff that really jumps out at you. So, I like this one as well, this kaimandake. This is when it first comes out. As the leaves expand and age, you get more and more and more green in it over the season. But yeah, it's pretty neat when it comes out like that. You go from something like this, a herbaceous perennial with these thick, leathery leaves. Okay, I get it. I get why they don't like that. And then you go to something like a bleeding heart, formerly Dicentra spectabilis, now Laprocapnos spectabilis, that is just so dainty and delicate, and it's got the fine ferny foliage. If I were to walk around the garden looking at the foliage of plants and thinking about if I were a deer, what would I be attracted to? It would definitely be bleeding hearts. They look tasty to me. And they're great plants. They've been around in gardens forever, and they're amazing to me. Kids love them, non-gardeners love them when you see those little hearts. This is one that I really like called Valentine that's got really dark flowers. That's the closest to pure red. And then, of course, to make up for my kincan, there's the gold heart where you get bright pink. These are brighter pink than you normally get on bleeding heart, along with this bright gold foliage in the spring. That's a pretty garish combination, which I love that. But easy plants, and they won't last all summer. Mine are still looking good, but it was cool spring. Mine are still throwing out flowers, and you'll often see them do that. But I'll cut it back. We'll start looking ratty before too long, and I'll just cut it back to the ground, and it'll kind of disappear for the rest of the summer, and then pop back up bigger and better next year. Love that, because I have this planted with some syningias which come up very late, and so the syningias are just starting to pop up. So by the time I cut my dicentra back, the syningias will really be going up and starting to flower. And speaking of tacky gold and pink, blatillas. And now I can't say for all orchids if they're deer resistant, but the Japanese ground orchid, blatilla, and this is a gold leaf form called ogon, and there are a bunch of different ones out there. My experience is every orchid that I've grown has been deer resistant. So the blatillas, the Japanese ground orchids, calanthes, I've never had deer eat my calanthes, or the slipper orchids, the cypripediums, I've never had deer eat any of those. So I mean, perhaps all orchids are deer resistant. I don't want to go that far, but the blatillas certainly are. And you talk about kind of like the bleeding heart's a really old-fashioned plant, Achillea. There are some great new ones out there. This is Sassy Summer Yellow. This is actually taken just before peak. It really will get a really bright, even brighter color. But the heads on this are just huge, and they're on really sturdy stems. Even in rich soil, this Sassy Summer Yellow, the stems stay upright, they don't flop over. It's got great silvery foliage, so before and after it flowers, you've got this really ferny, frilly, frondy, silvery textured foliage on there. Achillea wasn't my favorite plant. Some of the old ones just, I didn't love them. But some of these new breeds, I'm really impressed with some of what's coming out. The colors are clearer, the stems are stronger, the foliage is better, they rebloom better, they don't spread everywhere. I really like these. So this Sassy Summer Yellow this is tops to me. And you can get all kinds of different colors. I don't think I put in a bunch of different ones, but you can get whites and pinks and kind of brick reds and those sorts of things, and brighter and softer yellows. Lily of the Valley. People who have this kind of thing going on tend to complain about the lily of the valley that spreads everywhere. But you want to talk about a great ground cover that deer won't eat. And look at this. Look what's under there. That is English ivy. Lily of the valley is outcompeting the English ivy. That's pretty darn impressive. And you get those fragrant little flowers. I like that. I've got woodland areas, so I like things that will do some of that. And then if I want to plant something in there, I'll just come in there and dig out a whole big bunch of them, give them to friends or neighbors, and plant right down in there. But the one that I have loved since the first day I saw it is Potsdam Stripe. Isn't that neat? That That is one that is very, very good. I paid a small fortune for it when I got it many years ago. It was hard to come by, and have put out of my brain how much I spent on it. And every time it's really gotten going, I've moved it from one place to another. But I've gotten a spot now where it's really going to town. So I may be able to start. I really like to get this divided, get some here to the Arboretum, and put it into production and see if we can bulk up numbers so that we can actually offer this to people and get it out, because everybody who sees this just lusts after it. And if plants are deadly poisonous to us, they're probably pretty poisonous to deer as well. So you have things like angel's trumpets, brugmansia, and daturas that, they're poisonous. Deer will stay away from those. They do not eat them. And you can get, the brugmansias are hardy here in the triangle. Most, not every brugmansia, there are a lot of tropical ones, but a lot of these ones like Incan sun and Jamaican yellow are perfectly hardy for us. The first year in the ground, you might want to mulch them really well the first winter. But after that, they're generally good. They'll die back to the ground and then re-sprout. Now, brugmansias need to get to a certain height before they'll start flowering. So with most of them, that really means getting to about 4 or 5 feet at least before they start flowering. So they really will benefit from water and some fertilizer early in the season to really push them along. One of the reasons we like Incan sun so much is that it starts flowering when it's only about 2 or 3 feet tall, which is unusual for most brugmansia. So it starts flowering very early in the season, and then once it does that, it'll keep going. And about the time the sun goes down, that fragrance that comes from that angel's trumpet is just amazing. And, having that welcome you home when you get home from work, back when we used to all go to work, it's pretty nice. Another one, I didn't put it in here because it's a little more tender, although some forms are hardy, is oleander, Nerium oleander, another one of these very poisonous plants. Deer won't touch it. So when I was in coastal Virginia, where we grew a lot of oleander, people would plant that as a hedge around their yard sometimes to keep the deer out. Not a bad thing to do. Daphne odoras are another one that deer tend to stay away from. I like these variegated ones because I'm tacky. But actually, one of my favorite plants is the white flowered form of just the plain green leaf Daphne odora, which are hard to find. You can find white flowers with a white edged leaf. You can find the pink buds that open up to white with a solid green, but the white flowered green leaf, solid green leaf Daphne, I think is just one of the most elegant plants. And I'm looking at these, I can almost smell the fragrance from them. It's great. And you get 4 or 5 years out of your Daphne, great. It was worth whatever you paid for it. You can do that. Southern wax myrtle, really any of the wax myrtles. It used to be Myrica, now they've changed it to Morella. Cerifera. This is a gold foliage form found by Pat McCracken from here in North Carolina. But the bayberries are another group of great plants. They're underutilized landscape plants. They're just about as tough as you can get. They'll tolerate some pretty deep shade. They're fine in full sun. Once established, they're very drought tolerant. Yeah, they're great plants. And you can shear them into hedges. You can cut them back. You can let them get big and blousy. You can limb them up into small trees. I think they're way underused. And speaking of really underused, and we're looking at this plant in fall color back here, is Inkianthus. This is Inkianthus perulatus. It's one of the small flowered Inkianthus. Inkianthus perulatus is one of the easiest to grow. And you see it in Japan used as a hedge like this. Man, we should be growing this as a hedge. It is a deciduous plant, so it'll lose those leaves, but it's so fine and twiggy, it's still a dense hedge. And then you get these wonderful little white spring flowers that are kind of late spring and really showy. And then the fall color, like I showed in the first picture, can be spectacular. And Inkianthus, deer, in my experience, do just stay away from them for the most part. And you don't have to be limited to Inkianthus perulatus, even though that's one of the easier ones to grow. There are other ones like Inkianthus campanulatus, which has larger flowers. This Akatsuki and Palabinii are kind of more typical what you see in Inkianthus campanulatus. That's why it's called the red vein Inkianthus. But you can get solid white ones. You can get really dark rose red flowered ones. And again, you get great fall color on this. And then there are other species, Inkianthus cicoquianus with these kind of long racemes. This is a really dark pink form that's nice. Inkianthus chinensis, that is not a selected form. That was a picture taken in China. And those you could take those flowers off and set them on top of your pinky like a little hat. They were nice and big. Inkianthus cernuus, variety Rubens is a dark red form of cernuus, which is usually really pale. Seriolatus, this is kind of the big old chunky plant compared to the other Inkianthus. It's got thick stems, got bigger flowers, huge buds, really easy to identify. Quite a bit different from the other ones, but these are so gorgeous, and they're really underutilized. And if you can grow azaleas and rhododendron, you should be able to grow Inkianthus. They're in the same family. They like much of the same thing. Moist, well-drained, acidic soils are what they like best. Now we'll get into some that, perhaps you're more familiar with and don't think about in terms of deer resistance, just because they're such solid workhorses. The spireas, pretty much all the species of spireas in my experience are pretty deer resistant. This is a new one from NC State, from Tom Ranney. This is double play doozy. It comes out with this real burgundy foliage and then masses of these magenta flowers, and it's sterile, so it doesn't form any seed, so it tends to just keep flowering and flowering and flowering. The plants want to set seed, and so when it doesn't expend that energy on seed, and so it just keeps flowering, especially if you do any kind of deadheading at all, which I don't, but it even still tends to reflower without much deadheading. Another one in that series is double play candy corn, which the flowers are nice. It's nice when it's, when it's flowering, but when it's coming out in the spring like this, oh man, that is good stuff. You get where the name candy corn comes from. Another one from Tom Ranney, and man, I love that plant. It is very cool. And we have native spireas, the hard hat, and some of those, Spirea virginiana and tomentosa. There's the old bridal wreath spireas, and hootii, and I've never had issues with deer on any of them. Now, to go the other way from that, I have had plenty of issues with deer on plenty of viburnums. Viburnums, some the deer seem to leave alone, some they seem to really like. Our native arrowwood, southern arrowwood, Viburnum dentatum, not to be confused with the Asian Viburnum dilatatum. Viburnum dentatum tends to be pretty deer resistant. You can see this is it in full flower, with some fall color. And then Viburnum dentatum will have blue fruits. Viburnum dilatatum has red fruits. So it's one way to tell them apart, but I've had deer really go over the dilatatums where they left dentatum alone. So know those names, and otherwise those plants look pretty similar, so and be careful about that. The Arboretum did release a gold leaf one called Golden Arrow. I think Todd Lassane and John Rothling found that when they were both working here. It's a cool plant. I wish it was more widely known and grown, but it is not at this point. Ruscus aculeatus. This is a plant they call butcher's broom. It's one of these weird little plants where these aren't really true leaves. They're what they call cladodes. But this Elizabeth Lawrence form, this Ruscus aculeatus, has male and female plants. If you're not familiar with it, they're little evergreen shrubs. There are several species of Ruscus. Ruscus aculeatus is often called butcher's broom. It is, the tips of every one of these leaves is just as sharp and pointy as you want and stiff as can be. So I don't know what the butchers were having to sweep. Maybe it'd cut you up if you swept with it. I don't know. But it is stiff and tough. There's no way deer are eating this thing. The Elizabeth Lawrence form, either as the cultivar Elizabeth Lawrence or sometimes just Elizabeth Lawrence form or Elizabeth Lawrence hermaphroditic form, this is a self-fruiting one. And once you get this plant up and going, you stumble across it one day during the winter when it is in full fruit. And let me tell you, you will forgive this plant for every time it drew blood when you were weeding around it, because it is gorgeous, but just stays as a really little low thing. So we end up with succulents. Succulents, it seems like they should be something that deer really like. It's in the name, they're succulent. But they don't really. They stay away from them. And there are a lot of different types of succulents. The hens and chicks, they're one of my favorites. I have fond memories of them as a child. They're great to grow at your house for when people come over, because you can just go in and you can pluck one of the little chicks off of there, give them a handful, give your visitors, a handful of these little offsets, and, they'll be so happy. I grow them in containers outside my house because I don't like to water, and they're quite drought tolerant. People think of hens and chicks as wanting full blazing sun all day, but for us, they actually do a little bit better in the South with a little bit of shade. Don't have to treat them like they're, from the Sahara. You can put them in a partially shaded spot, a spot that gets afternoon sun or morning sun. But I love them in containers. And a lot of plants, when you put them in containers, you are just, putting the feeding trough up higher for the deer so they don't have to work as hard to get them. And the sedums are great. They're fantastic if you have a balcony or something like that as well. I really, really like them. And actually what I sometimes do, I don't have any right now, but I'll plant like a tree, a Japanese maple or something in a big container. And then if I have pots of hens and chicks or have them in the garden, I'll pluck off a bunch of these, the offsets, and I'll plant them all around the tree in the container and just kind of let it fill in all that space. And then when I want to plant the tree, in a permanent spot, generally I'll just, pop it out, hens and chicks and all, and plant the whole thing in one, at one time. And, it's neat. You've already got this, ground cover ring around your tree when you go to plant it. And the mangaves, if you haven't been growing the mangaves yet, you are missing the boat. Now, I generally stay away from things that are not hardy. And there's some mangave that are hardy. There's an awful lot that are not. Even I have succumbed to the mangave madness. What's great is you can get a little plant, you get a little quart plant or smaller even. You plant it in a container, you plant it in the ground. By the end of the season, it is big old huge plant that is really putting on a show. And you can get them, silvery and striped, burgundy or silver burgundy spots, and the really bright ones like kaleidoscope. That's kind of a marginal one for us. But they are they are the best things for containers. They're so good. Yeah, I mean, These things are awesome. And if you get a small one, and you plant it in a pot and you know, in decent soil, you will get a big plant. You bring that inside for the winter and you put it out the next year, you will have just a huge honking thing. And so these are the kind of plants that I like to put in the pot, and I'll bring them in and out for a year or two. And then when it gets to be too much of a hassle moving it in or out, then I leave it out in the garden. But what you don't get from these pictures is that they're much kinder and gentler than agaves. The hardier ones they've crossed mangaves and agaves, and the hardier ones, they've really crossed back with some hardier agaves to bring in more cold hardiness. So the hardier it is, the more stiff the leaves tend to be. You know, and speaking of agaves, I don't grow a lot of agaves in the ground. At my house, I grow one in the ground, and I love it, but I'm not an agave person. But the variegated agaves, I do like those a lot. And so I do have variegated agave planted in containers that I put out on my front steps, which probably, hopefully, clues people into how much I like people knocking on my door. And, you know, I leave them out most of the winter and really just take them in when temperatures are going to get down, you know, really for the ones I grow, you know, when the temperatures are going to get down to about 25 or so, I'll just move them into the garage for a few days and then move them back out. Now, some are very, very tender and really need to be inside for the winter, but others not so much. But I just love those. Huh. They're so. So, and you know, even the hardy ones, you know, you put it. This is agave perii. This is perfectly hardy for us. You put that in a pot out in the garden, it's great. You know, you don't have to worry about watering it. You know, this yucca, I don't know if it's linearifolia or which one it is, but I mean, that's a real statement right there on that wall. It's easy to do with these plants because you don't have to worry about going and watering them. If you're doing these real drought tolerant succulents, you know, you can set it out in the garden and it can be a real architectural, you know, piece of art out in the garden, and without the hassle of watering it. I hate watering plants, so I have to do that. You know, and you can mix them up. You know, you get, you know, this is a few of these things are not hardy. Then you got the Queen Victoria agave, that's hardy. Orostachys, not so much. This Dazzlerian is, this sedum is. So you can make these great containers. And since you can get all these different colors, you know, you can really play with the color of your pot. You know, this just has some gravel in there, but you can get, you know, colored stone and put it in there. So a really striking big container. It was a big kind of rectangular container that was planted fairly sparsely with sempervivums and some small agaves, and then it was white, fairly large white stone over the rest of it. It was just beautiful. Okay, I am happy to take questions. I see a lot of questions on here. Chris, you can help me out with any that I need to be.
The chat was very active. I think a whole lot of the questions were asked right away. A lot of them were sun or shade. So how about if we just have people type in their new questions or bring them up? I think they're mostly covered.
Yeah. And I'm going to echo what one of the last answers Chris gave. I don't do anything special for my succulents, in containers especially. If they're in containers, they are just going into whatever I'm potting up everything else that I have on hand. And in the garden, for me, same thing. You know, if you really go whole hog on succulents, that kind of thing, you can create a whole bed that's really super well drained. I amend my soil, so I'm not planting into heavy red clay. I'm planting in a nice organic soil. And sometimes that can be a problem in that with really rich soils, the succulents grow too quickly and they can lose a little bit of hardiness. But no, I don't mix gravel in the soil ever when I'm planting stuff.
Marianne just asked about the K-Rex. How deep are the root systems? Can she do them over a septic field?
Oh yeah, you can do that over a septic field. They're not deep.
And Michael asked about candy tuft and creeping phlox if deer eat them. I've never had them eat either of mine before in the past.
Yeah, phlox tends to be, as a group, tends to be pretty deer resistant, and dianthus too. Candy tuft, I'll have to take your word on. I don't. That's not one
I had it years ago. I haven't had it in a long time.
Yeah, somebody pointed out that the agastache behind me is deer resistant. That's another one of those aromatic type plants. Agastache is. Succulents take heavy direct sun. Yes, indeed. They most of them really like that. The agaves, the mangaves, the sedums, the delospermums. Yes. Oh, Holly Williams says phlox is not deer resistant for her. Interesting. Yeah, tall garden phlox, they do that more, but the moss phlox, the phlox subulatas, and those they tend to leave alone. But
I think I've had some of my deer nibble, but not really devastate phlox divaricata.
Yeah.
Touch it a little bit.
Yeah.
Barb asked if the symposium auction is all plants.
Yes, the symposium auction is all plants, and it's some good stuff. I know, like, we are offering a weeping beech that has only been, it will only be the second plant to leave the arboretum. We have the original plant, and it will only be the second one that has ever left the arboretum. And I know there's another plant, there's a holly on there, a really good looking holly that I am told there's only 6 in existence right now. And we do not have one of them here at the Arboretum. So I may be bidding on that for the Arboretum.
Someone asked, when was the plant or succulent plant sale? That's coming up on Thursday, we're hoping.
Yep.
Should be released at noon.
Thursday at noon, an email will go out to all members. Correct?
That's what I know. Yep.
Yep.
The catalog is available online right now.
Yeah. Will there be a talk about rabbit resistant? No. And I always say that because rabbits, they come through and just take off the top of anything. It's beyond me what they won't just nip the top off of. So I don't know. Slide with 3 mangave. What's the one on the right? That was.
I got that
Whale
question.
tail, I believe. So, will the beech be small enough to ship? So going to that, the beech, Linda, I'm not sure if that one's going to be small. If it's going to be small enough to ship, we can ship up to 1-gallon containers, and I believe it might be larger than that, but I have to double check on that. It might be one that gets squeaked in. I'll tell you this: the beech is small enough that if the bid gets high enough, I'll ship it anywhere in the U.S. How's that?
We got that recorded too.
Yeah. Yes. Do you have a plant list for the sale? Yes. You can go to that link, jcra.ncsu.edu/plant-sale/. Yep.
Asked us to mention something about rutting of deer. I don't know anything. I've never had that happen.
Magnolia, deer love magnolias for rubbing. Although interesting, based on multiple sources, well, 2 sources, me and somebody who was doing a big trial of magnolias down in North Florida, Magnolia Judy Zook, one of my favorite magnolias, is the worst for having for deer rubbing on it. So
I don't know what that is.
yes.
And someone's asking if there's any peonies that are good for down east.
Yeah, well, I mean, the down east they used to produce peonies commercially. That's why there's so many Dutch down there.
Terracea grows them down that way, don't they?
What's that?
Isn't Terracea down that way?
Yeah, Terracea. So the peonies grow fine down south. The flowers don't last long. Once they get hot, the flowers shatter quickly. So the show doesn't last as long as it does in Minnesota. If you want the number one best peony for the South, at least as of 30 years ago, Dr. Ken Tilt from the University of Alabama, he did extension research in Alabama. He did a massive peony trial in Alabama, and the best peony for the flowers lasting, is crinkled white. And that's still one that you can get today. There's a handful of peonies that are really easy to get usually, and crinkled white is one of them. And it's a single white flower with kind of ruffled petals, and it's a really good one. But you can grow the Ito peonies, the hybrid ones. Those do really well. Bartzella, Cora Louise, Hillary. There's a ton of them now. So yeah, peonies are great. Somebody says I didn't mention hellebores, and that, you know why I didn't mention hellebores? Because I used to always say hellebores were deer resistant, and I was somewhere and about 6 people's hands shot up and said, "Deer eat my hellebores." And after that, I'm like, forget it. Get it. Yeah, there's some Castle Hayne Farms has acres of peonies.
Rachel asked if you can do anything to prevent deer from rubbing on trees. I think that's just a physical barrier.
A physical barrier.
Yeah. Kathy asked us to differentiate between deer and rabbit damage.
So with rabbits, there'll often be material left on the ground. The deer generally eat everything they bite. The rabbits will nip things off, and you'll see stuff laying over, and not always, but often that way. But I don't know much beyond that.
I haven't seen it here in the South, but I remember rabbits getting bark of some plants back up in Chicago.
Yeah, I think that's a winter issue that we don't have. I think there's enough growing for winter here that they don't have to do that.
Dodie asked how to get to the plant auction if they don't attend the symposium. It'll be fully available online, and we'll have definitely the announcement built into the symposium announcement, but we'll make that available even on the homepage of the Arboretum's website.
Yeah. And there's been in the chat, just the tail end that I've been seeing, there's been some great things, like people didn't mention, Holly mentioned Euphorbia rabiae, and other euphorbias are going to be deer resistant. That's another one that's a real irritant, the sap in there. I saw Vitex on there. That falls in those category, those aromatics plants. That's a great one. So there are a lot of great suggestions in this chat as well, and I agree with most of them.
Lynn asked when the video is going to be available of this because she came late. We posted videos on the Monday following the presentations. Wow, someone's rabbits ate most of their milkweed. I found that surprising.
Yeah, I saw that too. That was crazy. Yeah, the sedums, the ground cover sedums tend to be better with deer than the taller ones.
Yeah. And I don't see any more questions in the chat. Yeah, the deer have never touched any of my ground cover ones, but anything that grows upright like Autumn Joy or Matrona, Fire Chief, they're just not worth growing from what I've seen in my yard.
Yeah, and
I hate to say that.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I hate to say that because I like the upright ones. I love my Matrona, but Even with deer repellent, I can't keep them off of it.
Yeah. Something that Marilyn mentioned is that, plants straight from the nursery, deer will often eat. And that is true. Even stuff they don't normally eat, when it comes from the nursery, it's been pumped so full of water and fertilizer that newest growth is just so succulent, and there's basically no natural defense in the plants at all, in the newest growth. So yeah, that's often a problem.
Yeah, I think you said the arrowwood viburnum is the one that they don't eat.
Yeah.
Mine's so bad that it died, but it was still in the pot.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So next week is your home garden, right, Mark?
Yeah, next week is my home garden. I'm excited about it. So those of you who've heard me talk about my wife, she's going to be the one filming me. So you may very, very well get some editorials in there from her. But yeah, I'm excited about it. My garden's looking good. I hope it still looks good, a week from now. But yeah, it's got some neat things happening in there. The early spring stuff's kind of gone over, but yeah, I'm looking forward to showing it off.
Will this be her first plant lecture?
Not her. It'll be her first plant tour.
Ah.
Not lecture. She has been to maybe 2 or 3 of my lectures before.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Is there any more questions? I was scrolling up. Yeah, go label the. That's exactly right. Label the plants so they know not to eat them anymore. It's the way to do it.
Too bad that doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot.
See you all later. Have a nice one.
Thank you.
Yep. See you, Marilyn.
Thank you. See you next week.
See you next week.